Episode 2. The Whirlwind and the Weapon. The dining area at the Apparatus Room was a masterpiece of industrial chic, all exposed brick, polished leather, and heavy brass fixtures that caught the flickering amber light of 100 designer candles. It was the kind of place where the air felt thick with the low, seductive hum of Detroit's elite, a symphony of hushed mergers and expensive cigars. Cupid sat at the head of the circular booth, her spine perfectly straight, feeling less like a matchmaker and more like a lion tamer positioned between two crazy-ass predators who hadn't been fed in a week. The tension felt like a living thing, vibrating between them and threatening to shatter the crystal stemware on the table. On her left sat Julian Vane, the very picture of corporate menace. He was draped in a charcoal three-piece suit that fit him like a second skin, leaning back with a glass of neat bourbon that he swirled with a rhythmic, impatient intensity as the diamonds in his watch shimmered in the dim light. On her right sat Genevieve, Gigi, Beaumont, a vision of old money defiance. Her hair was a crown of a perfectly maintained ombre of curls, and her hazel eyes, usually warm and inviting, were currently narrowed into razor-thin slits of pure, ice-bitch frost. She wore an emerald silk gown that seemed to glow and highlight her every curve as her caramel skin glistened under the lights, though her posture was as rigid as a soldier's. They had spent the last hour debating absolutely nothing. A complete waste of my damn time, but I have to make sure my brand is not tarnished by Julian and his vindictive actions if I can't get them to seal the deal. Every word out of Julian's mouth was a challenge, every response from Gigi was abrasive. It was a verbal bloodsport, and neither seemed willing to concede an inch of ground. Let's be entirely real for a moment, Julian. Your family's name wasn't even on a single charity gala guest list until your father struck oil in the 90s, Gigi snapped, her voice a sharp, crystalline contrast to the elegant drape of her gown. She leaned forward, the movement causing her hazel eyes to flash with a fire that made the candle flames look dull. The Beaumonts were funding the Detroit Institute of Arts and building Grosse Pointe Estates while the Vanes were still trying to figure out which fork to use for salad. You can buy all the downtown real estate you want, but you can't buy legacy. Legacy is just a polite word for stagnant, Genevieve. Pure and simple, Julian countered, his jaw set so tightly it looked like a structural component of the building. He didn't raise his voice, which only made the coldness of his tone more terrifying. The Beaumont Empire is a museum piece. Your family has been resting on the laurels of auto industry glory for 3 generations, slowly draining your trust funds while my family actually funds the future of this city. Look at the balance sheets. The Vane Group could buy your family's entire portfolio by tomorrow morning and barely feel the dent. Oh, please. You're flash-in-the-pan new money, and everyone in high society knows it, Gigi scoffed, tilting her chin up with a look of supreme disdain. You have liquid capital, sure. But when the symphony needs a new wing, or the mayor needs a private council, they call my grandmother. They don't call the Vanes. You're a ledger, we are the foundation. They call your grandmother out of habit, not influence, Julian said, a cruel, lazy smile cutting across his sharp features as he took a slow sip of his bourbon. But habits change when the checks start bouncing. Keep clinging to your pedigree, Gigi. In 5 years, the only place the Beaumont name will carry weight is on a tombstone. The air between them practically sizzled. Cupid felt her own blood pressure spike, her patience finally fraying like an old rope under the weight of their combined egos. Without a word, she slammed her palm flat onto the table. The silver clattered, the bourbon in Julian's glass jumped, and the entire restaurant seemed to go silent for one agonizing heartbeat. Both predators froze, their heads snapping toward her in unison. Listen up, Julian. Cupid's voice was low, but it possessed a vibration of absolute command that cut clean through the ambient noise, instantly silencing the surrounding tables. I went along with this bullshit because you walked into my office and threatened my business. For some reason, maybe a temporary lapse in my own damn sanity, I thought I had to play nice just to protect my brand from your vindictive ass. Well, guess what? I did my job, and I did it too well. You two have been going at it all night like it's a high-stakes corporate takeover, and it's painfully obvious to everyone in this room that you're both just fighting the attraction just to be right. She turned her gaze to Gigi, her expression softening only a fraction. Gigi, I have known you a long time, and I have never seen your eyes fire up like this. You're not quite the asshole he is, but you are tough, maybe a little too tough for your own good tonight. I am asking you, as a friend and as your matchmaker, to drop the armor. Let your guard down and give the man a chance to be more than a ruthless developer. She pivoted back to Julian. The man was actually stunned, his mouth slightly agape. And Julian, just breathe for a minute. You are such an angry asshole 24/7, you should be exhausted by now. Your ego must be tired. Take the night off. Enjoy Gigi. You might just find out that if you stop trying to conquer her, you can secure your perfect corporate merger and find the one at the exact same time. And guess what? You both are disgustingly loaded. Sign a prenup and get it over with. I have had enough of the drama. She walked away without looking back, her heels clicking a rhythmic, victorious tattoo against the polished floor. Behind her, the silence at the table was absolute, until a tentative laugh broke the ice. Away from the crushing weight of their family names, the walls crumbled. They spent the rest of the night talking and laughing about aggressive acquisitions, the thrill of crushing the competition, and global travel. To their mutual surprise, the raw intellectual sparring transformed into a magnetic, undeniable pull. By midnight, they were in the back of a town car heading toward the Hilton Towers. That night, the penthouse wasn't just a room, it was a battlefield that turned into a sanctuary. The moment the suite door clicked shut, all pretense evaporated. Julian didn't approach her with a contract, he approached her with a hunger that mirrored her own. He paused just long enough to turn on the sound system. The seductive, heavy beat of "Hungry for You" by the rising AI artist Sky filled the room, the lustful lyrics radiating from the speakers. Clothes were discarded in a frantic trail of emerald silk and Italian wool. When Julian's skin finally met Gigi's, it wasn't the cold contact of a boardroom mogul, it was a fever. He pressed her against the floor-to-ceiling glass, ripping the delicate spaghetti straps of her gown. It pulled at her ankles, leaving her caramel skin glistening against the backdrop of the shimmering Detroit skyline. His hands, usually so busy signing away people's livelihoods, were suddenly worshipful, tracing the elegant curve of her spine. The lovemaking was visceral, desperate, and loud. It was the sound of two lonely titans finally finding someone they didn't have to conquer to feel alive. In the heat of it all, Julian's stern mask fell away completely, replaced by a raw, gasping vulnerability as Gigi pulled him closer, as he kissed her neck. Afterward, they stayed awake for hours, tangled in the sheets, talking and laughing, surprised by how easily they could share a space without a struggle for power. The next morning, they walked into Cupid's office hand in hand. Cupid nearly dropped her morning coffee. Julian was dressed in a fresh, crisp suit, but the Atlantic ice in his eyes had melted into something softer. Something human. He was still undeniably stern, but the razor-sharp edges had been blunted. "You were right, Cupid," Julian said, his voice lacking its usual harsh rasp. But mid-sentence, Julian's phone chirped back-to-back with violent vibrations. He excused himself, stepping out of the office while the ladies talked. On the screen, a new text message glowed. "Do not go through with this merger or else." Julian's jaw tightened. He deleted the message, keeping the threat entirely to himself. When he stepped back inside, the conversation shifted to wedding bells. They agreed to host an extravagant engagement party in exactly 2 weeks, confidently stating the prenup would be finalized and signed by then. "It'll be a whirlwind romance," Julian said, looking down at Gigi. Cupid watched them, catching the genuine smile they shared. It really was a whirlwind. But while the romance bloomed, Chloe was digging. 2 nights before the big party, Chloe called a covert meeting at a dimly lit bar in Greektown. The air was thick with tension as she slid a manila folder across the sticky table. "Cupid, he's not just a shark," Chloe whispered, leaning in close. "I found offshore accounts linked to the Sterling Group acquisition. Julian isn't just buying them out, he's covering up a massive embezzlement scheme their board was running. Someone desperately wants to stop this merger because it's going to trigger federal auditors. He's in way over his head, see?" Panic flaring, Cupid knew she couldn't sit on the information. She called Julian for an urgent coffee meeting the next morning. She laid it out flat. She knew something dangerous was looming, and if Gigi was in harm's way, he needed to tell her the truth before the rings were on their fingers. Julian's eyes had gone completely cold. He vowed he would handle it and tell Gigi everything privately before the engagement party, but he made one thing terrifyingly clear: it was none of Cupid's business. The engagement party was a dazzling sea of crystal, champagne, and flashing diamonds. Detroit's high society turned out in droves, from powerful senators and local celebrities to the city's formidable first female black mayor. The night went off without a single hitch. The two enemies who had once spent an hour screaming over community lofts now looked like a couple deeply, irrevocably in love. Before leaving the venue, Cupid caught up with the happy couple, handing them a room key. As a celebratory gift, she had booked them another night at the very same Hilton Towers penthouse that had started it all. Hours later, the penthouse felt heavy with a different kind of electricity. It was clear to both of them that what had started as a transactional arrangement had deepened into real love. Wanting to surprise her new fiancé, Gigi excused herself to the bathroom to slip into something breathtakingly sexy. She smiled at her reflection, her heart racing with anticipation. But when she stepped back into the candlelit suite, her world shattered into a million jagged pieces. Julian was on the floor, sprawled violently across the expensive rug. His eyes were wide, vacant, and staring up at the ceiling at absolutely nothing. Protruding from his chest, driven dead center directly through his heart, was a heavy, gold-tipped arrow. Gigi's scream ripped through the quiet of the luxury penthouse as she dropped to her knees, frantically scrambling for her phone to call 911. Had Cupid been standing there, she would have recognized the murder weapon instantly. It was the custom, heavy gold heart arrow that had sat on her own office desk for years.
The crystal was flashing, the mail was there. A beautiful illusion in the midnight air. Back to the penthouse where the fever began. Walking hand in hand with the change man. She slipped into silk, a smile on her face, ready to melt in his wicked embrace. But the silence is heavy, the shadows are long. The music has faded, the skyline is wrong. Step through the doorway, the world slips away. Red on the carpet where a titan now lays. Vacant eyes staring at a ceiling so high. No time for goodbyes, no time to ask why. The weapon is striking right through the heart. The merger is broken, tore us apart. A scream in the penthouse, the luxury bleeds. A dark corporate secret sewn from the seats. And the arrow that killed him, yeah, it belongs to Cupid. Heavy gold tip in the dim candle.